Hello, I'm Barbara Glanz, and I'm thanking you for joining me today. Although I am a Hall of Fame speaker and I've written 13 books, my children and grandchildren think that my greatest claim to fame is that I am the first speaker on record to speak in all 50 states and on all 7 continents. So this is me speaking on my 7th continent in Antarctica. And actually there were people there, not just penguins. But we're going to talk today about appreciation and recognition. And it was so exciting to have that recognition of being able to speak in every state and all the continents. So I want to start by telling you a story, something that happened to me just before the pandemic hit. I was flying from Sarasota to Atlanta. And I get to board early because I travel all the time. So I had gotten on the plane, I took my seat, and just a couple of minutes later, a person in uniform came back and sat in front of me. It wasn't 2 minutes before a woman came out of first class, came back to this young man, and she said, "Sir, I'd like to see your boarding pass." And so he handed it to her, and she said, "I'd like to trade seats with you." And he said, "Oh, no, ma'am, I couldn't do that." And she said, "Yes, you can. I'm your boss. Thank you for your wonderful service." And so he got up, got his stuff, got into first class. And then about 5 minutes later, another person in uniform came and sat behind me. Just a minute or two later, a gentleman came out of first class, came back to this young man and said, "I'd like to trade seats with you. Thank you for your service." Folks, by the time that plane took off, every single person, the captain came on and announced, every person in uniform was sitting in first class. And so that's a wonderful example of appreciation. It wasn't a big thing. It didn't cost anything, but it just said to those people how much everyone cared about them and appreciated their service. So I want to start by asking you 2 questions, and I'd like you to jot down what you think the answers to these 2 questions are. Question number 1, what percentage of American workers told us that all last year they got no appreciation for the good work they had done? So just jot down somewhere your answer to that. Second question, what percentage of workers told us that all last year they got no appreciation for the good work they had done? And if you will, just jot that down. So the other question is, what percentage of workers are giving their very best to their jobs? Fully engaged. And again, jot that answer down. I guess I asked you that question twice on appreciation. That's how important it is. So let's look for just a moment at the importance of appreciation. Compensation is a right, it's deserved, but appreciation and recognition are gifts. So I'd like you to write down, appreciation is a free gift. And we're going to come back to that a number of times in this presentation. Appreciation is a free gift. It costs nothing. Recognition is a little bit more formal, and sometimes that can have a cost. But we're mostly going to talk about appreciation. So think about your last day at work. How many times did you offer criticism, even if it was constructive? And how many times did you appreciate someone? So all the research shows, this is a SHRM study, that 79% of the people who leave their jobs do so because of a lack of appreciation. So when we go back to those 2 questions, only 12 to 15% of people are fully engaged in the work that they do. 8 to 10% are burned out. I hope that's none of you on this presentation. But that leaves 75 to 80% of our workforce who are just doing enough to get by. So that's our target audience, folks. If we can fire those people up to say, I'm important, I'm of value, somebody sees the work I'm doing, it's going to make a huge difference, not only in your workplaces, but in our whole world. And so the second question, what percentage of American workers said they got no appreciation all last year? Actually, I thought this one might be higher, but 65% said they got no appreciation. And so think about that. If you did your best work for an entire year and nobody noticed, how would you feel about that? Would you keep going? Some of us have a work ethic that we would, but most of our younger people today do not, and they need that constant feedback and praise. So this is another study. We found that praise must outweigh criticism by a 5-to-1 margin. And so think about that to achieve a really high performance culture. Think about that in your interactions. And even if you're working at home, there are so many ways that we can still appreciate people, with voicemail, with email, with texts. And so keep in mind, this will make a real difference, not only in your workplace, but in your life and in all your relationships, including your family. So I love this from a Japanese study, that people get just as excited about receiving a compliment as they do at the prospect of getting money. And then the second thing that I love from Japan, the proverb, one kind word can warm 3 winter months. So I want you to leave this session today being more appreciative people. And that will help you create a culture. And by the way, I think most of you know that all the research says we spend over half our lives in our workplaces. And so they should be places of joy and caring and creativity and fun and encouragement. And by the way, the root word of encourage is cur, the Latin word for heart. And so encouraging someone comes from the inside out. And that's what appreciation is all about. This is a model I use in all my work, and I want you to leave with this tattooed in your brain. It basically says every interaction we have with anyone has 2 levels. There is the business level of meeting whatever their external objectives are, but there's also the human level, which is all about how they feel in that interaction. Now, I want you to think for just a moment about your workplace. All of your employees are very well trained on what level? The business, of course. But which of those levels creates loyalty, whether it's customer loyalty or employee loyalty? And you see, it's the human level. It's how people feel. So every interaction that you have, I want you to ask yourself, have you taken care of both the business and the human levels? And so think about when you give constructive feedback, not criticism, but constructive feedback on the business level, and you do it in a kind and caring way. That's going to leave people having really accepting that information in a very positive way. And so as we think about this model, I want to tell you a quick story. I recently, before the pandemic, was in the airport at Chicago O'Hare. It was a cold, snowy February morning. And there was a woman there who was cleaning, and she was all hunched over and just kind of going through the motions. So I walked up to her, touched her on the arm, looked her right in the eyes, and I said, "Thank you so much for keeping this restroom clean. You're really making a difference for all of us who travel." She perked up, she started cleaning like this. And by the time I left, she was handing towels out to all the women who were washing their hands. Folks, I left with tears in my eyes because that cost me nothing. But what did I tell her in that one encounter? She was of value. She counted for something. And so as we think about appreciation in that human level, people today are desperate for somebody to see them and value them and make them feel important. So this is one of the fastest ways. Remember, appreciation is a free gift that you can encourage in your workplace and really raise morale and with that productivity. So let's look at some of fun examples of the human business model. Federal Bureau of Feelings, sir. It seems that last night you neglected to ask your wife how her day was. You have the right to remain silent. A little business level. G. Jeffrey, an annual report on our marriage is a novel anniversary gift, but I was hoping for something a little more romantic. And my very favorite, Helen tries out her new "Not Tonight, Honey" nightgown. Good example of the human level. And again, this one is true all over the world. Help, we're lost, but our dad won't stop to ask for directions. And no matter where I speak in the world, everybody gets this one. So if this happens in your boardroom, then we'll know we've gone a little bit too far. The vice president in charge of sincerity. So everything I'm going to talk with you about today is really all about choice. One of the things I've noticed as I speak all over the world is most people in our world today do not get in their guts what I call choices. They see themselves as victims. And so everybody seems to have an excuse or someone to blame. One of my goals in this presentation is that you will leave really understanding right here that you have choices in every single interaction. My husband had two friends that commuted to downtown Chicago every single day for 19 years. And by the way, I think of this story every day in my life. Every day they would take the same train, go to the same newsstand, buy the same paper from the news guy. And every day, one of the two, 5 days a week, 19 days, would say to the guy at the newsstand, "How are you? How's your family? What did you think of the Cubs this weekend?" Never once in 19 years did Joe ever learn my friend's name or respond to him in any other way than a grunt. My husband finally said to him, "How can you day after day after day be nice to Joe, this news guy who doesn't even acknowledge your presence on the face of the earth?" My other friend said, "You know, I learned a long time ago not to let someone else control my behavior." Not to let someone else control my behavior. And so again, I want you to leave with choice, understanding choice. So this is a very simple model I created when I first started speaking. It's had such a powerful effect, even saving lives, I've heard from folks. So it basically says every interaction that we have with anybody, we have a choice of creating a minus, a zero, or a plus. If we discount them, and make them feel less important than us or our organization, we're going to leave with a minus. They will leave with a minus. If we just take care of their business, and I call these people slot fillers, they come in, they do just enough to get by, the clock strikes, and they're out the door. Or we can make what I call a human level connection and say to that person, "I see you. You are of value." And appreciation is one of the best ways that we can do that. So you can be good at your job, be a transaction giver, but we are all in the relationship building business. So we need to remember that human level connection so we can build those relationships for customer service, for employee loyalty, customer loyalty, and just feeling good about ourselves and the difference that we're making in this world. And so again, I want you to leave with this tattooed in your brain, just like the human business model, and think about every time you interact with anyone, have you taken care of both their business and their human need? Have you created a plus for that person? And you know, going back to that story I told you about, that we can choose our reactions. What that says to me is that no matter what anybody in this world says or does to me, I always have a choice of my reaction. And that, folks, is so empowering. And for you to teach this to your children, your spouse, your coworkers, that we always have a choice in how we react, how we respond. So let's look, and let me share one thought with you. There's a quotation I love that says, every interaction we have with another person leaves both us and that other person on a higher or a lower plane. Are there people in your life, when you're around them, they just suck the energy right out? And then aren't there people when you're around them, you feel like $1 million, like you could do anything? Which one do you want to be? Has nothing to do with personality, nothing to do with anything except your choosing. And so my hope is that you will be a person who lifts people up and not a person who drags them down. It's your choice. So when we give somebody a compliment, that's the human level, and that's what people look like. When we take the time to say, I see you, you are of value. So again, become a person who reaches out and makes a difference. And again, there's so many different ways to do that. This is a quotation that has meant so much to me in my life from Albert Schweitzer. He says, sometimes our light goes out, but is blown again into flame by an encounter with another human being. Each of us owes the deepest thanks to those who have rekindled our inner light. Would you all just close your eyes for a moment? And I want you to think about someone in your life who has rekindled your inner light. Perhaps a parent, a teacher, a friend. Would you just jot down the name or names of the people that you thought of? And this is something I'd like to ask you to do. It's very important to me. Would you, in the next 72 hours, let that person know that you thought of them? It can be a phone call, an email, a voicemail, a note, or just a little prayer if they're not here any longer. And I want to tell you why. I had a gentleman who came up to me after I had spoken one time and used this thought. And he said, Barbara, I thought of my 8th grade literature teacher. He said everybody loved her. She was everybody's favorite teacher. And he said, I decided I was going to track her down and let her know, as you suggested. So about 2 months went by, and one afternoon I got a phone call from this gentleman. And he said, Barbara, I want to tell you what happened. He said, I took about 6 weeks to find her. And when I did finally find her, I wrote to her on a Monday. And this is the letter I got back on Saturday. The letter said, Dear John, you will never, ever know how much your note meant to me. I'm 83 years old. I'm living all alone in one room. My friends are gone. My family's gone. I taught for 50 years. And this is the first thank you letter I've ever had from a student. Sometimes I wonder what I did with my life. I will read and reread and reread your letter till the day I die. And he just sobbed in the phone. He said she was everybody's favorite teacher. Every reunion we have, she's always the one we talk about. But nobody told her. So will you let that person know? You will be changing a life, I guarantee. 3 kinds of appreciation and recognition: kinesthetic, auditory, and visual. We have to be careful with kinesthetic these days, of course, but it can also be watching for body language, direct eye contact, as well as touch. Auditory, many people want to hear appreciation, and some people want to hear it in private, some want to hear it with the whole group. Find out what your colleagues and coworkers want. And then the most important one, I think, is the visual. I suggest that you get a folder and you write on the cover of it in great big letters, AIG, stands for Ain't I Great? And everybody should have one of these. And every time you get something that makes you feel joy, makes you feel appreciated, put it in that folder. It can be cartoons, it can be cards, it can be notes from people, whatever brings you joy. But as you write notes to other people, one of the president of Hearst Corporation, every day on his commute on the train to and from work, wrote thank you notes to people in that huge company. And he said he found people save them year after year after year. And so that will touch people very greatly. All right, let's look at the 10 things that we need to remember about appreciation. First of all, everyone wants and needs it, everyone. So a wonderful story I want to share with you. A friend of mine who is a teacher in a very rough neighborhood in LA. In November, they had the first parents open house. Now in his class, he had 2 little boys named Johnny. One of the Johnnies was the ideal student, always had his homework done, always participated in class, stayed in from recess many times to help the teacher. The other Johnny was a pain in the neck, never had his homework done, interrupted class every single day, caused all kinds of problems for the teacher. Well, the open house came about, and afterwards, one of the mothers stayed. And she said to my friend, the teacher, I just want you to know I'm Johnny's mother. And he said to her, oh my goodness, I love that kid. It's so much fun having him in class. He's a great little guy. Well, the next morning, problem Johnny had his homework done for the first time ever. He participated in class. He stayed after and helped the teacher in the classroom. And finally, he looked at the teacher and he said, you know, no teacher has ever said they liked having me in their class before. And it was the wrong Johnny. Anyway, this young man, he said, became one of the best students he ever had and went on to do wonderful things in life. And who knows if that might have been the thing that made the difference for him. So praise is like sunlight to the human spirit. We cannot flower and grow without it. Another thing, it doesn't have to be something big. I want to share an idea with you that I love. I had a gentleman who came up after I'd spoken in a big company, and he said, Barbara, I loved what you said today. He said, I have the lowest performing team in the whole organization. Never once have they met their goals. He said, I've tried everything, but you've gotten me thinking. About 10 months later, he called me back, ecstatic on the phone. He said, I have to tell you what happened. He said, I got the whole team together and I said, okay, any of you who meet your goals this quarter, I'm going to call your mothers. And he said, every single one of them met their goals for the first time ever. Now, isn't that precious? Cost him nothing. He said it was one of the nicest things I've ever done. Some of the moms cried. And you know what? They will never forget that, nor will the young people that he called about. So think about that. It costs you nothing. If you can, call somebody, and I don't care how old we are, to have somebody call your spouse, your significant other, one of your children, your grandparents or parents, and thank them for you and the good work you're doing. They'll never forget that. Kind words are short and easy to speak, but their echoes are truly endless. All right, make it personal. Do you know the passion of each of your direct reports or your colleagues, do you know what it is that they love, that they just come alive when they talk about it? Is it their dog or their kids or their sports team or their motorcycle? Find out what that is and remember that and share little things about that and let them know that that's important to you. And if you can get them a little gift sometime that has to do with that, an article that you clip, it says to them, you care about them. They're important to you. Baxter Labs is a client of mine. They did a worldwide study where they asked all of their employees, what can we do to make it better for you? And what do you think they thought they'd get back? Yeah, money and benefits. The number one thing these people all over the world wanted was to be respected as a whole human being with a life outside of work. So find out their passion and remember it. Lands' End gives these out to everybody and they give them away. And at the end of the quarter, they give an award to the person who gave the most of these, or who got the most of these, I'm sorry. But who do you think I asked them to give one to? Yes, the one who gave the most. And I love this. The DMV in Virginia gives these out. You're to give one away a day. They give you 30 a month. And people have fun, all the different ways that they leave them in restrooms and on car dashboards and windshields and in lunch bags. And again, it's fun. It's fun to appreciate people. So be creative. Get out of the box. Think of different things that you can do. I think it's so much fun to look at candy bars. Look at the names of candies. Lifesavers, Snickers, Butterfinger, Hershey's. One of my clients said she was going to be shorthanded that day in the office. And I talked about this idea. So on the way to work, she stopped at the store and she bought a whole box of Nestle's Crunch Bars. And when everybody came into the office the next day, on their desk, she had the candy bar with a note saying, thanks in advance for helping out in the crunch. Yes. She said it was one of the best days they ever had, and they were shorthanded. Now, my daughter's been around me a lot, and when she graduated from college recently and went to get her first job, she decided she did her nice formal resume, and then she wrapped it around a Nestle's $100,000 bar, and she put a little Post-it note on it saying, this is what I'll be worth to your company if you hire me. Did she get the job? Yes, she did. Now, my husband said, that's very unprofessional. But she said, you know, Dad, if they don't like this, I wouldn't want to work for them anyway. So look at other things. You have Extra, you have Score, you have Payday. Have fun with this. Have fun with this and surprise people. So that the next one is surprise people if you can. Again, it's so much fun. Everybody loves a surprise. So one of my favorite ideas, one of my clients had a big company and they found out their janitor, who had been their custodian for 20 plus years, was having a birthday the next day. So they all through the company, they sent a message to everybody. And they said, before you go home tonight, empty your own garbage can, trace a piece of paper, and write a birthday note to Fred and put it in the bottom of the wastebasket. The next morning, Fred worked at night. The next morning, he came in with tears streaming down. And he said, nobody's ever done anything that nice for me before. And not only that, but everybody learned how tough it was to have to empty their own garbage can. So surprise people if you can. Now, my daughter-in-law has 3 teenagers right now. So this is posted in her living room. Be nice or leave. Love that. Be sincere. Be sincere about what you do. So be specific in the appreciation that you give. Don't just give a general, great job, but tell people specifically what they did, because that says, again, you saw them as an individual. You focused on them and the specific things they did. It might be fun to put a poster when you get back to the workplace, put a blank poster in everybody's cubicle or area, and have people just write down things they appreciate about that person. And they will save those forever and ever. Have a plan. This is a big one. You need to know exactly where you are in terms of what you're going to do and how to make this actionable. So let me give you some ideas. This is my favorite idea. When you get up in the morning, put 5 pennies in this pocket. Every time you thank someone, you move a penny over to this pocket. And you don't go home at night until all 5 pennies are over here. And this is a wonderful one you can also do with your family. And every family member puts 5 pennies, and then at dinner that night they share who they thanked, who they appreciated. And again, it not only helps raise the level of joy in this world, but you're also teaching a wonderful lesson. So one other thing that you can do, I have an A day. Wednesday is my A day. And no matter where I am in the world, I write several notes, send emails, some voicemails. That is my appreciation. I try to do it, of course, every day, but that's my really important appreciation day. And one more thing, as you're thinking, get a big letter A, you can put it on your desk, you can get them at the hardware store. Anything that you have that reminds you to appreciate other people. I want to share with you, I love this, the universal sign language for thank you. Put your hand on your heart, and then you just extend your palm outward, and that says thank you. Now, when I'm running through the airport, I try to stop always and thank anybody in uniform. But when I can't do that, I at least do this. So that's a wonderful way to be a part of sharing the appreciation for others. So share yourself from the heart, from the inside out. And I mentioned the root word of encourage is cur, the Latin word for heart. So as you appreciate and thank people, you are an encourager. It is coming from your heart. And think about the human business model. You know, which level creates loyalty? It's the human level, that level of coming from the heart, of recognizing a person as a unique human being. So this is very precious to me. I've done a lot of work in Asia, and this is the Chinese characters that make up the verb to listen. So you see on one side the ear, the intellect, but on the other side you see bringing your full personhood, your eyes for body language, your undivided attention, and then look at the cornerstone. So you cannot truly listen without your heart. And I suggest that you write something big and post it in your workspace asking, am I listening with my heart? Am I listening with my heart? My master's degree is in adult learning. And one of the things we know is that you will never get behavior change from here, from the business level. You only get behavior change when you reach people here at a heart level. And you can see these posters that I have up. I use these often when I'm speaking because people need to see. For example, a smile is a window that shows your heart is at home. The heart is an awfully big place. It can hold a lot of people and allow who you are on the inside to be who you are on the outside. Make it memorable. And this is important. You know what? The people on that airplane I told you about will never forget that experience of every service person being in first class. I want to tell you another example from one of my clients. This was Kaiser Permanente. She had a coworker, actually a direct report, who had taken on a special project, and it was about a 2 or 3 month project. And she had a longer commute time. She had to stay often in the evenings. It cost her a lot in terms of time with her family. She gave up a lot. So at the end of that project, my friend wrote a letter to her family, and she thanked them for their mother, and she explained how important the project was to Kaiser and what the mother had done. And then at the end of the letter, she enclosed a gift certificate. And she said to the children, I want you to choose something special with this to celebrate your mother. So a couple of days later, the mother came in again in tears She said, my family has never, ever treated me so well. And so what can you do to do something for the family of your direct reports or coworkers when they've gone out of their way to do something special? And that's a special kind of appreciation for everybody. And do you think they're going to complain when that person has to work overtime the next time? And finally, one of the important things that you've got to do is to appreciate yourself. And as you do that, I want you to think about special things you can do just for you. That AIG folder is one of them. And also doing things that bring you joy. So as you think about appreciating yourself, if your emotional bank account is not filled up, it's going to be really hard to fill up the emotional bank account of someone else. And I love the concept of the emotional bank account, that during the day we get deposits and we get withdrawals. What do you get the most of in your work? Most of the time people say withdrawals. What happens when you've had withdrawal after withdrawal after withdrawal after withdrawal? You're overdrawn. And so one of the things we can do, first of all, is look around at the people with whom you work if you're in the office, but you can often tell even by an email or a voicemail by the tone of voice and the way people sound if their emotional bank account is overdrawn. And what can you do? Give them a deposit. And I've talked about a number of ways. And by the way, I'm going to give you a number at the end of the session to text me if you would like a list of appreciation ideas. I'll be happy to send that to you. But think about creative ways. You can take them a little treat. You can write them a note. You can do so many things to tell them how important they are and that you appreciate them. And that will refill their emotional bank account. And then the second thing is, do you know when your own emotional bank account is getting low? What can you do? So right now, I want you to write down 3 things as a strategy that you can do to refill your own emotional bank account and appreciate yourself. I sometimes take 5-minute vacations. If I can, I get outside and just walk around the building for a minute. Sometimes if I can't do that, I go to the restroom and I shut the door and I go to the Bahamas for 5 minutes. You can do anything you want. It doesn't cost any money. And so creative things you can do. I have a client who is the bureau chief in the Department of Forestry in the state of Florida. And after I'd spoken, he called me and he said, Barbara, I have to tell you what I'm doing. He said, when my emotional bank account is getting low, I send myself flowers. And he said, I don't put any card on it. And all day long, he said, people come in. Oh, is it your birthday? Who sent you flowers? He said, I get more attention than I could possibly imagine. So again, think about refilling the emotional bank accounts, both of your coworkers and your customers, because many of your customers come in overdrawn. And so what can you do? Give them a deposit and talk about this because it's very concrete. Talk about this within your team and begin to become aware of how you can give people deposits. And then, of course, keeping your own emotional bank account filled up. It can be prayer, it can be music, it can be listening to someone, meeting someone, calling someone who loves you. So many things you can do for yourself. So the bottom line of appreciation is you will always receive more than you give. And as you become a more appreciative person, you're really not only raising the level for that person, raising the level for yourself, but you're really raising the level of goodness in our whole world. And don't we desperately need that today? We need more kindness. We need more caring. We need more appreciation. And it can begin with you. So to be remembered for being important in someone else's life, make them feel appreciated. Think about the people that you said had rekindled your inner life. They gave you a gift that you remember to this day because they appreciated you, they encouraged you. So this is the legacy that we can all leave in our workplaces and in all of our lives, to be remembered as someone that made other people feel important. So recognize the need for appreciation. Generate creative ideas. That's going to be a fun one. And again, I have all these ideas I can share with you. Some are kind of off the wall, like calling their mothers, but they are wonderful ideas that people won't forget. Have a strategy, have your plan. Don't forget the 5 pennies. Be specific and personal, and make it a habit. Now, I want to end by telling you a story that 5 million people have watched on YouTube. They've made 2 movies of it. It's my story. It happened early on when I started speaking, but it's about how one person can make a huge difference, and that one person can be you. So I was asked to speak to 3,000 employees of a large grocery store chain. And they brought everybody. I love it when I can speak to the whole company. So they brought the baggers, the cashiers, the meat packers, the produce people, the bakers, everybody. And one of the things, I was speaking that day on customer service, one of the things I said to them is, what can you do to make the customer feel special? How can you put your special touch on the work that you're doing? And I gave them a bunch of ideas. And I always give my home phone number to every audience. It's 941-312-9169. 941-312-9169, because I want to hear from you. So about a month after I'd spoken, I got a phone call one afternoon. And the person on the line told me his name was Johnny, and he was a bagger in one of the stores. He said, Barbara, I liked what you said. And he said he went home that night. He said, I got an idea. And he asked his dad, and when he told me, by the way, in that conversation, he was a person of Down syndrome. And he said, I asked my dad, and he helped him. And he said, every night when he goes home, he finds a thought for the day. And he said, if I can't find one I like, I think one up. Love to see what he thinks of. Anyway, he and his dad type it 6 times on a page every night. He prints out 50 pages, cuts them out, signs his name on the back, and the next day, for every person's groceries he bags, he puts a thought for the day in the bag. That's special. Well, about a month later, the store manager called me. He said, when I went out on the floor about 9:30 this morning, the line at Johnny's checkout was 3 times longer than any other line. He said, I went ballistic. I was yelling, get more lanes open, get more people out there. And he said, the customers said, no, we want to be in Johnny's lane. We want the thought for the day. So who do you think was the most important person in that whole store? The manager said one woman came up and said to him, I used to only come in once a week, but now I come in every time I go by because I want the thought for the day. Impact on bottom line. What happens when you go in the grocery store? What's absolutely amazing, 3 months later, called me back again, and he said, Barbara, you and Johnny have transformed our store. He said, now in the floral department, when they have a broken off flower or an unused corsage, we used to just throw them away. He said, now they go out on the floor and they find an older woman or a little girl and they pin it on them. He said, one of our meat packers loves Snoopy, so he ordered 50,000 Snoopy stickers, and every time he packages a piece of meat, his meat gets a Snoopy sticker on it. Now I said, I don't know about dog stickers on meat. But he said, we are having so much fun, and our customers are having so much fun. And folks, that spirit in the workplace, and that is what one person can do. One small thing, one creative thing, one appreciative thing that every one of us on this call can do as well. So appreciation is a free gift that you can give to anyone you encounter. It's completely your choice. And each time you choose to thank somebody for a job well done, making the world a better place. Now, I'd like to close with a thought from a dear friend of mine, Og Mandino. So would you all close your eyes for just a moment? And this is his rule number 10 for a better way to live. He says this: beginning today, treat everyone you meet, loved one or stranger, friend or foe, as if they were going to be dead at midnight. Extend to each person you meet, no matter how trivial the contact, all the care and the kindness and the understanding and the love that you can muster. And do so with no thought of any reward. Your life will never be the same again. And folks, I hope that you've gotten some things today, that your lives will never be the same again. I pray that you will leave being more appreciative people and be making a difference in this world. So text GLANS to 22828 to get those extra appreciation ideas. And then for more ideas and information, you've got my phone number. My website is barbaraglanz.com. And I look forward to hopefully meeting you one day in person. So God bless. Have a wonderful, wonderful conference. Bye-bye.